In this video, we're going to show you how to replace your front brakes on this Nissan Altima. They are located behind your front wheel. It's time to remove our wheel. We're going to use a 21mm socket. Make sure you hold on to the wheel so it doesn't fall off. Put your lug nuts where you can find them. So I turned the wheel out to access the bleeder on the caliper. I sprayed the parts with penetrating oil so it comes off easier. And I'm just going to loosen up this bleeder. It's a 10mm. You gotta take off this rubber boot. Protects the bleeder screw. If it's tough to come off, you can use a screwdriver. All right, 10mm. And loosen it up until you see a drip. Make sure you have a drip pan below you. Okay, I'm going to tighten it a little bit so it doesn't bleed everywhere. And then we're going to go for our bolts here, which are 12mm. Okay, and crack open these. We're going to loosen up these slides for the caliper. Take out the bolts. I typically leave the top one in for a second. Now you can take a pry bar and just pry up the caliper. Okay, and then you can take this bolt out. Remove it. I'm going to lean it right here. Do not kink this hose. If you have a caliper hanger, or you could just use a bungee cord, you can anchor it to the spring. Okay, at this point, I'm going to take off my pads. I'm going to notice where my sensors are. They make you squeak when you need brakes. Those are on the top. I'm going to say that out loud so that I myself remember. All right, now at this point, we are going to take the caliper off the hanger. We've already broken open the bleeder. I'm going to open this. Make sure you see fluid coming out. That is a 10mm for the bleeder. Turn it, make sure you have a drip pan or something to catch the brake fluid. You're going to set up your caliper compressor. I usually use a brake pad up against the piston. As you push that in, you're going to notice the brake fluid come out. You're gonna do this till it stops. Till you can't push anymore. Yeah, that's about it. I'm going to take my 10mm wrench. Tighten this back up. Take my tool out. And I'm going to anchor it back on. Usually put it through a bolt hole. Put that out of the way. We're going to take the caliper bracket bolts out now. These are 22mm socket. They are pretty snug. If you don't have air tools at your house or battery operated tools, you may need a breaker bar to break them loose. I usually loosen it until I can do finger loosening, because you don't want the bracket to fall off. So now we have the caliper bracket out. We are going to check to make sure our slides move. That helps the caliper squeeze the rotor. If these are stuck, they're not going to do their job. Then you're going to have serious brake problems. We're going to clean these out. So we're going to pinch and twist. And you'll see all the dirt underneath. You're going to pull that right out. We'll do one at a time. And take a rag, wipe this down. And you look inside there, make sure it doesn't look all nasty. Okay. Inspect the boot, make sure there's no cracks. You don't want dirt getting in there. Inspect your slide, make sure it's not pitted. You can clean up the lip right here where the boot rests and holds on. I'm going to use some silicone paste, not too much, just enough to coat it. And set that to the side. Now you're going to put some in here. And you're going to squeeze down and pull it out. You're going to want that inside the little ribs, because that's where it stores its grease. Put that back in. You're going to want to go in and out a few times. Spin it. And then you're going to push all the way down. Make sure there's no air in there. Put it back all the way. And that one's done. Now you're going to move on to your next one. Same thing, I'm going to pinch it, try to twist it off. Wipe it. inspect. This one looks pretty good. Wire brush that lip. Get any rust out of there, dirt. Wipe it down. Silicone paste. A little bit, not too much. Set it aside. Then you're going to look in your boot again, make sure there isn't chunks of rust or dirt. These actually look pretty good. And then you're going to put some silicone paste inside here. You're going to squeeze it. Make sure you load up those ribs. Take your pin, slide pin, move it around. You want to really load it up. Then you're going to push all the way down, get the air out, slide that boot back up. Here's some air bubbles coming out. Sometimes you gotta take a skinny screwdriver as you're pushing down and just let some of that air out, or excess grease. Just gonna make sure with this side too. Yep, there was a little in there too. You don't want air in there because then the vacuum won't work on it. Okay. Now you're going to take these off because you got new ones. Notice what they look like and how they're positioned. I'm using a flat blade screwdriver. Usually your brake pads come with new ones. I usually set mine where I took it off, so there's no confusion, especially if you've never done this before. Okay, now I'm going to look at my new ones, and I'm noticing that these look a little different. The new ones have a spring loader that hooks onto the brake pad, which I'll show you later. These look pretty much the same. All right, now I'm going to take this and I'm going to wire brush in where the brackets were. You really want to get in the creases because you don't want this to pop up on you, the new one. That causes a lot of noise in the brakes when you put it back together. I usually give it a good feel, make sure there's no raised anything. That looks pretty good. I'm going to brake clean that. Get the excess brake dust off. I'm going to go over to my drain bucket and do that. I'm not going to get this boot. Rubber boots don't like brake clean. And then you just let that air dry. Okay, now that we're done cleaning in here, we're gonna put some silicone paste where those go. You don't want too much, just enough. Okay, and now we're gonna place these in. They should snap right in. Means you did good cleaning. All right, we're going to take off this rotor now. Oh, it looks like it's stuck. I have a few pointers on that. You can spray penetrating oil around here and a little tiny bit behind each stud. And then we're going to have to use a hammer, since we're not reusing these rotors, to bang it off. What I usually do, if you don't have very good aim with a hammer, some people do, some people don't, or maybe you just have a bad day, you put your lug nuts on, so in case you miss and hit your stud with the hammer, you're not ruining your studs. All right. I'm just trying to loosen up some rust. There we go. Popped right off. All right, so now I'm noticing the hub is pretty dirty. Obviously, the rotor had a hard time coming off, so that means it's got some rust. So we're going to take something to get the rust off. If you have one of these, you can use that. If not, you can use some sandpaper, wire brush. Using one of these, you don't want to push too hard. You don't want to take metal off, just rust. All right, and then in this area, you need to use your wire brush to get that lip. That's typically where the rust builds up, and that's the reason why you can't get your rotor off. I'm just going to brake clean that off. Let that air dry, and then I'm going to spray some anti-seize. This will prevent things from getting stuck in the future. So this stuff you just spray on. There's also the kind that you can get that's a brush on. That stuff's a little messy, so I like spray. Now I have our new rotor. This rotor doesn't appear to have any film on it. Sometimes you'll get a rotor that does, and then you want to clean it with some brake clean. But for this particular rotor, you don't need to do that. I'm going to sit it on there. I like to hold my rotor on with one lug nut at the bottom. I'm going to screw it all the way on. That way when you're dealing with the bracket and the caliper, it doesn't go flopple all over the place. All right. All right, now we're going to put the bracket back on. Finger tighten first, then we're going to snug it up, and then we're going to torque it. Make a mental note that you have these on top. Help you remember how to get this back on. Okay, we're going to take our 22 millimeter socket. Now we're going to torque these to 98 foot-pounds. You do not want to put any anti-seize on these bolts. There's a reason why they're torqued to 98 foot-pounds, because you don't want them coming out. Yeah, the click. Okay. So now you're going to put your brake pads in. Make sure your brake pads are going against the rotor and not backwards. All right, so you got one in. Do the same on the other side. You're going to feed it through. And now you have your brake pads in. You're going to take your caliper off your caliper hanger. I usually just drop it so I don't forget that it's in there. And I carefully put it on the rotor. Make sure you push your slides in a little bit for clearance. There you go. Hold it in place. That your one bolt. And your other. Hand tightening. Okay, now we're going to take our 14mm socket. We're going to torque these down to 20 foot-pounds. Okay, now that we've put that on, we're going to take this lug nut off. Don't want to forget that. And we're ready to put the wheel back on. Now it's time to put our wheel back on. Keep a hand on it so it doesn't fall off till you get a lug nut started. Make sure you finger tight them. You don't want to cross thread the lug nuts on the studs. We're going to tighten up the lug nuts with a 21mm socket and a star-like pattern. You're going to be torquing these, so don't over-tighten. All right, so now we're going to torque our wheel. This vehicle takes 83 foot-pounds, so you set your torque wrench to 83 foot-pounds, and then you're going to go in a crisscross or star pattern as you torque. You're going to wait for the click. There's one. There's two. 3, 4, and 5. I like to double check that I got them all. All right, now you can take a deep breath because you have finished the job. It's time to take your car for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.